Hi friend, welcome back to another video on Rancor Reptiles. If you like these videos, please leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff down below. I'm here with another Herp talk. If you like these Herp talks, leave a comment down below. Tell me whether you like them or not. Maybe you like bird's eye view videos more. Maybe you like genetics talk. Let me know. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you want. Alright, so in a previous video we went over a barrier for entry for getting a pet. Really, it was really for really any pet. You can be a dog, amphibian, reptile, you name it, bird. There's certain environmental limitations for these pets that you need to have in the back of your mind when you're getting them. The first one was environmental. Does your new pet really vibe with your local climate? I made the example several times with dart frogs in Arizona. Dart frogs do not vibe with Arizona climate, obviously. But something like a sulcata tortoise vibes perfectly. It's perfectly at home. Arizona is probably one of the only places in the United States where you can keep a sulcata tortoise outside all year long, and it's perfectly happy, perfectly healthy, right? So the first barrier was that environmental barrier. The second barrier for entry for any pet that I'm going to be getting into today is the spatial barrier. When you're buying a pet, that pet is going to take up space and it's going to demand a certain amount of space to live. Obviously. Duh, right? Right? So simple, right? It's going to need damn space to stay away from you and all that good stuff. However, this becomes a barrier simply because different sized animals demand different sized enclosures, different sized spaces. A leopard gecko is going to need 20 gallon aquarium enclosure, right? Doesn't take up a lot of space. Viper geckos, small gecko, doesn't really take up a lot of space. Some of the micro geckos like I don't know, the Madagascar clawless gecko doesn't take up all that much space. Those animals have a fairly soft barrier to entry when it comes for space. They don't demand a lot. They can probably live in a bookshelf, maybe even on a rack, like that one back there. They don't demand a lot. However, some animals do. And those of us that are in the community, hanging out in the community, curious about reptiles, people that do their research, they kind of know which animals to stay clear from because they're kind of infamous, right? For their size, for their demand of space. These animals are big. They're big boys. And they demand that space. Things like reticulated pythons. Those are the longest, some of the longest snakes on the planet. Black-throat monitors. Absolutely massive monitors, right? Asian water monitors, they get big and they need a water feature, adding on to the amount of space they need. So most of the people in the community that have been around for a while, we understand that these bigger animals need bigger spaces, and it's obvious, it's common sense. However, people that are green, people that don't know, people that show up to expos and that's their first experience with reptiles, maybe their children want a certain reptile and they show up to an expo to get it, they just don't know, right? And so it's really important to become educated. Obviously, if you're watching this video, it isn't for you. You probably have seen hundreds of dozens and videos on your feed talking about reptiles, and you have a common sense grip on the sizes of some of these animals. However, people that are new, people that are green, they might not know. In my family, there was one of my younger cousins wanted a pet iguana. I immediately, well, since I was the reptile person, they asked me, Hector, where's a good place where we can get an iguana? And I told them, you should not get an iguana. They're absolutely horrible pets. and you should rather get a bearded dragon if you want a bigger lizard, because bearded dragons, unlike the iguana, aren't hellspawn, and they won't bite the shit out of you, and they won't whip you. Maybe they'll bite you, but they won't tear your face off. So when these new people show up to expos and they get, say, a baby reticulated python, they get a black-throat monitor, they get an iguana. These people don't understand that these animals, when they get to their adult size, these animals are big. They're infamously big. They're gonna need space. You know, with Asian water monitors, they need a damn water feature to go along with them, for them to have a proper setup for them. We know that. It's common sense for us in the community. However, these new people really don't understand that. Obviously, when you're getting any animal, you should never buy on impulse, and if you do buy an animal on impulse, you need to know their basic care parameters before you even consider them, right? If I were to go to, say, a reptile expo close to me, and they're selling Europlatus fantastica, satanic leaf-tailed geckos, you know, boy, I don't have an enclosure set up for them, but they look pretty cool, and they're selling them for a deal. Oof, and I buy them. Obviously, I know their care. I know right around their enclosure size. I know what they eat. I know how big they get. I know their temperament, and I know that they're not a Hannibal species. I know that. That is an impulse buy. However, I have some knowledge on that. A bad impulse buy is when I don't know anything about them. They look cool, so I bought them. And you don't know if that animal is going to stay a nice 5 inches, or if it's going to get to 8 damn feet. I don't know, like 3.5 meters to people in the rest of the world. So you need to understand, well, we all know that these animals take up space. If you see anybody, let's say at an expo, buying a reticulated python, and the children are happy about it, and you can ask them, like, oh, do you know about reticulated pythons? And do you know they get to 14 feet long? Or do you know, if you're buying a black-throat monitor, black-throat monitors are very expensive. They're around $1,000, I think. $1,600, right around there. So people that buy black-throat monitors, they kind of know what they're getting into. Again, that's going with the price. However, like I said, people that don't know buy these animals, and they don't expect these animals to get that big. Boas are a good example of this. People buy boas thinking they're gonna stay around the size of a ball python, and then it keeps growing, then it keeps growing, and it keeps growing until you got a 14-foot specimen on your hands, and you don't have enough space for a 14-foot specimen. And maybe it's even against some laws, because in some places you can't keep a snake that grows over 10 feet. So to you and me watching this video, we know about the spatial barriers and spatial limitations for some animals, majority of animals. However, it's the newer people. This video really is as more of a call on you. If you see somebody that looks fairly green and they're picking up a reticulated python or a sulcata tortoise, let them know. These animals, though they're cute now, they're going to get big. They're going to become adults. They're going to demand space. They're going to need space. Let them know that if they're going to demand this space, and it's important for them to consider whether they have the space. Because a lot of times these larger animals end up in rescues simply because they just don't have the space for them. Even though this was basically a contract they were signing when they bought that animal. And really it is treachery on our end to buy these animals irresponsibly and not properly house them. So, this has been the second barrier. There's one last barrier I do want to talk about, and it's probably the barrier that's underneath these two barriers that there's environmental, there's spatial, and then there's a third one that kind of holds them up. If you have, if depending on how easily you're able to jump through this last third barrier, it probably is going to signify how easily you can get past through the environmental and the spatial barrier, right? And I'm going to talk about that third barrier in another video. Alright, well, thanks guys for coming and listening. As always, hope I see you guys in the next video. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks guys.